Have you ever heard a belief so insane that you have to double check if you actually heard it correctly? Well, welcome to the top 10 worst Jehovah's Witness rules that have absolutely ruined lives. Because if you think this is just another quirky Christian denomination, think again. We're talking rules that have torn families apart, taken lives, and left people traumatized for decades. Rules that any high control group would be proud of. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about faith, it's about control. Some of these rules you might have heard of. Some might shock you, and by the end of this, you'll probably be asking yourself, how does anyone still believe this is the truth? Let's get into it. Starting off with number 10, no higher education. JWs discourage college or secular education, calling it a spiritual danger or of Satan's world. But let's be real, educated people are harder to control. If members don't get degrees or learn critical thinking skills, they're stuck in low-paying jobs relying on the organization for stability. The irony? The governing body can send a male member to the best law schools to protect JW policies in court. So education is bad unless it benefits the cult. On to number 9, no joyous childhood celebrations. JWs ban birthdays, holidays, and basically any fun celebration. They claim the practices are pagan, so abstaining keeps them pure, but what it really does is isolate members and make childhood miserable. No birthdays mean no yearly reminder that you matter. No holidays means no shared cultural experiences. Imagine being the only child in school being separated from the rest of the children who doesn't get a birthday party, a Christmas gift, or even a holiday costume. That's JW childhood in a nutshell. Number 8, isolation tactics. JWs discourage forming close friendships with non-members, calling them worldly or claiming that their bad association will corrupt them. But really, it's just another way to keep members from hearing outside perspectives. Being a Jehovah's Witness is like living in an echo chamber. When the only voices you hear are JW approved, you stop questioning. If everyone around you repeats the same beliefs over and over, it feels like truth, even when it's not based in reality. Isolation makes it easier to manipulate members and control their life. You can't fact check their teachings if you're not allowed to engage with non-JW experts, like historians or even regular people with different views. This also makes leaving the JWs terrifying because they don't just lose a belief system, they lose their entire social structure. Next up is lucky number 7, false predictions of Armageddon. JWs have predicted the end of the world multiple times, like 1914, 1925, and 1975, for example. And each time members sold their homes, quit their jobs, and gave everything to the worldwide work, only for the world to keep spinning. Then when the predictions fail, Watchtower gaslights its members by pretending they never really said it. Doomsday prophecies create a sense of urgency and encourages sacrifice and devotion. Why save money, go to college, or build a future when the world won't exist soon? When a prediction fails, you may think, why don't Jehovah's Witnesses leave on their own? Many people double down on their faith because admitting they were wrong means admitting they wasted years or even decades of their life on a lie. JWs are taught they are a chosen few who will survive the apocalypse. It makes them feel special, superior, and reinforces loyalty to the group. Number 6, the subjugation of women. Women in the Jehovah's Witnesses are expected to be submissive, can't hold leadership roles or other responsibilities in the Kingdom Hall, like accounting or running the sound. Meanwhile, men, no matter how incompetent, are seen as divinely appointed leaders. Women are permanently second-class citizens, and even teenage boys have more power than a grown woman. She can be forced to take spiritual direction from a teenage boy simply because he's male. Women can't challenge male authority even in situations where they have more knowledge, life experience, or wisdom, not to mention the toxic power imbalance it creates. Women are more vulnerable to abuse, and they can also be trapped in unhealthy marriages. Do you think people should be forced to stay in unhealthy, abusive marriages? We're halfway through our list. Have you hit the like and subscribe button? If you want more deconstruction content, breaking down cult tactics, make sure you do so now because we're just getting into the thick of it. Number 5, no political or social activism in the face of injustice. Jehovah's Witnesses are required to remain neutral in politics. No voting, no protesting, no civic engagement. They claim it's because they only trust in God's kingdom, but conveniently, this also means they never challenge the system, even when it's corrupt. During the civil rights movement, Jehovah's Witnesses were told to stay out of it. The Watchtower sided with inaction, effectively helping the status quo remain unchallenged. JWs are taught to wait on Jehovah rather than taking action against systemic oppression, even in the face of police brutality, discrimination, and human rights violations. On the other hand, the organization actively fights its own legal rights in court, but refuses to support members for fighting for their own rights in society. Would they have told enslaved people to wait on Jehovah instead of fighting for their freedoms? Because that is exactly the logic they are using today. If your so-called neutrality only benefits the oppressors, are you really neutral or just obedient to the system? Only gets worse from here, folks. Number 4, blood transfusion ban. Jehovah's Witnesses are forbidden from accepting blood transfusion, even if it means death. They base this on an extreme interpretation of biblical dietary laws, ignoring the fact that those laws were never about life-saving medicine. The reality, this rule kills people. Approximately 1,000 Jehovah's Witnesses die every year for refusing blood transfusions. Since the doctrine was enforced in the early 1960s, it's estimated that over 30,000 Jehovah's Witnesses have died from this policy. Children are among those victims, and instead of mourning the losses, the Watchtower has glorified their deaths. In one of their magazines, they published a tribute to children who refused blood transfusions and died, calling them faithful examples. Imagine losing your child and then seeing a cult celebrate that loss instead of questioning why they let it happen. This isn't just about following scripture. It's about creating a loyalty test that is so extreme, members would rather die than disobey. That's cult manipulation 101. Isolate the members from outside medical advice, force them to make life or death decisions based on doctrine, make suffering or dying for the faith seem honorable. And the worst part? If a Jehovah's Witness accepts a blood transfusion, they could be disfellowshipped, which means losing their friends, family, and entire community. So even when facing death, they face another death. So there really is no choice. They're being coerced. Would a loving God want you to refuse a life-saving treatment? I don't think so. Number 3, sexual abuse cover-ups, protecting predators, not victims. Jehovah's Witnesses have been exposed repeatedly for shielding predators. Thanks to their 2-witness rule, which we'll get into, many abuse cases go unreported. Even when victims come forward, elders tell them to leave it in Jehovah's hands, rather than going to the police. They have paid millions in lawsuit settlements while still pretending they're the moral authority. If a corporation or business had this many lawsuits for covering up abuse, it would be shut down. But when a cult does it, people call it religion. I guess one of the 10 commandments should have been, thou shalt not abuse children. Number 2, the 2-witness rule, a loophole for protecting predators. One of the most damaging Jehovah's Witness policies is the 2-witness rule, which states that a serious accusation, like abuse, requires 2 witnesses to be considered valid. If a victim comes forward without another person to confirm the abuse, the elders do nothing. The scripture the Jehovah's Witnesses use to justify this rule is based on Deuteronomy 19:15, which says, "No single witness should rise up against a man respecting any error or any sin that he may commit. On the testimony of 2 witnesses or the testimony of 3 witnesses, the matter should be established." This scripture was written for legal disputes in ancient Israel, yet the Jehovah's Witnesses apply it to cases of sexual abuse. And it's clear that sexual abuse rarely happens in front of multiple witnesses. Most child abuse happens in secret. There's never a second witness. If the abuser denies it, which they almost always do, the case will be dropped due to lack of evidence. Elders do not report cases to the police unless they're legally required, meaning predators remain free. And many victims are forced to face their abuser in what is called a judicial committee, adding further trauma. Even courts have called this out. The policy has led to many lawsuits and government investigations worldwide, and courts have ruled that Jehovah's Witnesses systematically protect predators because their policies prioritize their religious rules over child safety. But here's the real question. If God's law is about justice, why does this rule allow criminals to walk free while silencing victims? Here we are at number 1, shunning, aka disfellowshipping, psychological warfare disguised as love. Jehovah's Witnesses claim that shunning is a loving form of discipline, but in reality, it's one of the most extreme and damaging forms of social control. If a Jehovah's Witness is disfellowshipped or excommunicated, they're completely cut off. not just from their congregation, but from their own family and lifelong friends. Parents ignore their children, siblings pretend each other don't exist, friends turn their backs on friends overnight. And it's not just suggested, it's enforced. Jehovah's Witnesses are told that acknowledging a disfellowship person could make them spiritually weak. Shunning isn't just an inconvenience, it's devastating. Studies on religious shunning have shown that this type of isolation can lead to depression, anxiety. Being cut off from your entire support system creates severe emotional distress. Suicidal ideation. Many ex-JWs have reported struggling with suicidal thoughts after losing their families overnight. Witnesses are conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to the organization. And when they're kicked out, they feel like they have no purpose or direction. Post-cult PTSD. Religious trauma disorder is real, and ex-JWs often struggle to adjust to normal life after being conditioned to believe that the outside world is evil. This is not spiritual discipline, it's emotional abuse. For years, the Watchtower has boldly defended the practice of shunning. They've published articles, videos, and talks reinforcing it. But now, they've started to change their tune and verbiage about shunning due to legal pressure. They even deleted official videos from their website that explicitly reinforce shunning, trying to rewrite history as if they never enforced it so strictly.
Mom and Dad saw that they needed to be loyal, just like Aaron. They loved me and wanted me to come back to Jehovah. I tried to contact them. I just wanted to talk and to hear their voice. I missed being with my family. And they thought about reaching out to me. But they knew that if they had associated with me, even a little, just to check on me, that small dose of association might have satisfied me. It could have made me think that there was no need to return to Jehovah. I was disfellowshipped for more than 15 years. I had 2 children now, and as time went by, I thought about their future. I thought more and more about returning to Jehovah in the congregation, but I didn't feel worthy.
So let me get this straight. If it was really God's law, why does it change when lawsuits start stacking up? That's not divine truth, it's damage control. If this rule truly came from God, why are they silently erasing it whenever it becomes a legal liability? It seems less like divine direction and more like men making it up as they go. Watchtower love to claim the rules are from God, but when you really break them down, they have all the hallmarks of a high control group. Harsh punishment for leaving, strict social isolation, manipulation through fear, and policies that change when it benefits the organization, not the people. If something is truly divine, shouldn't it hold up under scrutiny? Why does their unchanging truth keep changing when the pressure is on? And here's the real question. If you weren't born into this group, would you choose to join it after hearing all of this? Let me know in the comments what you think. I have more atheist and deconstruction content that you can check out here. And you can catch me and my friends Durante and Chris every morning, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Atheist Morning Show. We'll see you there.